Hello everyone. Today's tutorial is on data types. So the first question come to our mind is what is a data type or why we actually need a data type. So let's take an example first. Suppose I need to store a value or a name or any decimal value in my computer. What I will be needing is a memory location to store it. So I will pass on my value to a variable and it will store in a memory location. But how will Java or how will any programming language will know what kind of value it is until or unless we define them? You are smart, I am smart. We know that name is of string data type or name is of string value, an amount is of numeric value and decimal number is of floating value. But how will Java know? So what data type does is it determines the value it may contain and the operation that can be performed on the variables. Okay. So if I store a value in my memory location, I can perform arithmetic operations on my value. If I store a string value in my memory location, I can perform string operations on my value. Let's have a brief look at the different kinds of data types. There are basically two types of data types. The first one is primitive, that is built-in data type. Those data types whose definition are predefined in the Java, and another one is non-primitive. Non-primitive means derived ones. That means it has been derived from the built-in data types, that is primitive data types. Primitive data type is further classified into two categories, numeric and non-numeric. By numeric we means integer or any value like 10, 10,000, 20,000, 10.1, 20.5, anything. By non-numeric we means anything apart from values, that is numbers. Numeric is again classified into two categories, integral and floating point. Integral is any value that does not contain decimal numbers, and floating point is the value which contain decimal numbers. Okay. Integral is again then classified into four categories, byte, short, int, long, and floating point is again classified into two categories, float and double. All have different memory sizes. So now the question arises, why we need different data types, or why we need four type of integral data types or two type of floating data type. As you can see, all the 6 data types down here are of different sizes. For better utilization of memory location, we have characterized the data types into different categories. Like what if I had to store only marks? Suppose there are number of students in a school and the teacher need to store their marks. Why they need to store it in a long or a floating point data type? It will consume much larger space than a byte. So our another one is non-numeric. Non-numeric contains character and bool. Character means it contains a character value, that is A, B, C, D, a single character. And bool means boolean, that is it may contain a 0 or a 1, that is a true or a false value. That's it. Our another data type is non-primitive data type. As I have told you, non-primitive is the derived data type. That means it is derived from the primitive one. So the non-primitive data types are arrays, class, string, interface, etc. We will be learning about all of them in our further classes. Let us first take an example of each and every data type within program. So first of all, what you need to do is, as always, create a file, create a new class, give it a name, data types, select the main method, click finish, learning data types. So let's start with the basic data type. What we have studied earlier was in integral data type there were 4 types, byte, short, int and long, all with different sizes. So what those sizes are and what does that mean, let's have a look. Say byte is of size 8-bit and has a range of -128 to 127. That means whatever value you are gonna assign to byte, it should be in between -128 to 127. If it exceeds this range, it will come in the category of short, or it will give you an error. Okay, so let's test the range of byte first. Go to Eclipse, declare a variable. See, this is the way to declare a variable. You have to write a data type first, then a variable, and then a semicolon. As I have told you earlier, every statement must end with a semicolon. That's our declaration. Let's assign a value to A. Let it be 100. It's the definition, or can say initialization. This is the one way to declare or define a value. Another way is byte B is equal to 101. In this we have declared and defined both in the same line. So this is a declaration and definition of byte. But how will we know that byte is in the range of -128 to 127? So let's just print it out first and see the output. See, what I have done here is I have given a statement to print a line, and to print the variable what I have done is I have concatenated it with the statement. So whenever you want to print a statement with a variable, you have to concatenate it with the statement. That is, you have to use the plus operator. And if you just want to print the variable, what you have to do is just write the variable. Both will work the same way. Let's execute the command and see. Say, down in the console window you can see the output as value of byte A is 100. So what I have done here is I have given the statement plus concatenation sign plus our variable. That is, it has printed my variable, and we have got another output as 101. In this we have given a statement to print the variable only. So both will work the same way. Let's check the range of byte. Let's change the value of A to 128. See, it has given me an error. Type mismatch cannot convert from int to byte. Why is the error? Because as we have studied, byte has a range of -128 to 127. So when it crosses the limit of 127, it will give an error because byte cannot hold a value of 128. But the question arises, why it has given me an error that it cannot convert from int to byte? Why it has not given me an error that it cannot convert from short to byte? Why? Because by default Java consider int as a default data type for integral data types and double as floating point data type. So that's why it will give an error that it cannot convert from int to byte. See, when I change the value to 127, the error has gone. So how come we know that byte has a range of -128 to 127? Let's have a look. As I have told you, byte has a size of 8-bit. That means byte has a value of 256. That means 2 multiplied by 8 times, that is 256. That is 2 raised to power 8 times. We have a size of 256. But as we know that integer has a range from negative to positive. That means we have to divide 256 in two parts, negative number and the positive number. So byte will have a range of -128 to 127. Similarly, you can check the range of short data type, integer data type, long data type. Let's take an example for short data type first. Then we will move on with floating type data type. So what I need to write is short, our data type, give it a variable, assign the value. Let's check the range first. Short has a range of -32768 to 32767. That means 32767 is the last of its range. So it will not give me an error if I will give a value of 32767. But what if I will give it a value of 32768? It will give me an error that type mismatch cannot convert from int to short. So you have to be sure about the range first to work with data types. So let's print it out and check, have I done anything wrong? See, we have got our desired output. So similarly, you can test the output with integer and long data type. Right now you are learning data types, but the one thing you must know about data type is which data type to use to store which kind of value. Suppose I need to store a value less than 100, I will be using a byte data type. Suppose I need to store the mobile number. So what will I do? I will use a long data type because that will contain the range of my total mobile numbers. So that's how you are gonna select your data types. You must be particular about that because it will help you save the memory. Our another kind of data type was floating point data types. So let's check it out. As I have told you earlier, we have two types of floating point data types. The first one is float, another one is double. Both are of different sizes and different range. So let's check the range of floating point data type first. Floating point data type means the numbers with decimal numbers. So let's take a variable of floating point data type, float. Let's take a variable f is equal to, give it a value. Let's take 10.2. Put a semicolon. See, it's still giving me an error. And what is that? Type mismatch cannot convert from double to float. As I have told you earlier, double is the by default data type for floating point data type in Java. So when you are using a float kind of data type, you have to add f at the end of the values. You can either write a small f or you can write a capital F like this. F is equal to 20.5 f. Both will work the same way. So let's check the output of floating point data type. See, we have got our output of 20.5. Why we have got 20.5 not 10.2? Because first of all we have assigned a value of f to 10.2, but in the very next line we have given a value of f as 20.5. That means the value of f has changed from 10.2 to 20.5. So it will take the last value and print the same for us. Similarly, if you want to print a double, use double, take a variable d is equal to 20.44 semicolon. See, it has not given me any error. Let's check out the output. I will be copy pasting again. See, I have got an output of 20.44. So this was floating point data type. Many math functions return double values, so Java uses double as by default data type for floating point numbers. Our next kind of data type is character data type. So char is the keyword for character data type. Take a variable for char, give it a value, put a semicolon. Let's execute the command and see the output first. See, I have got the output as A. See, what I have done here is I have taken a character variable, assigned a value to it. You have to remember one thing while assigning a value, that the value should be in a single quote. It is a must expression. If you forget to put a quote, it will give an error. Invalid character constant. That means it has not received a character value. So remember, while using character type of variable, you have to use single quote sign to assign a value to that variable. Character has a size of 16-bit. That means it has a huge range of character set within it. And as we know that Java uses Unicode system, so you can have a large collection of character set within character data type. Our next one is Boolean data type. So what is a Boolean data type? Boolean data type can contain only two outcomes. That means it can either be true or can be false. It does not contain any other value than that. So when you are using a Boolean type of data type, you have to be sure that you are using it for the true or false option only. Generally, Boolean type of data type is used for conditional and control statement, that is if-else statement or while loop. So let's check it out first. Boolean type of data type. Boolean. Let's take a bool. Give it a value of 1. See, what it had given me is an error. Cannot convert from int to bool. And why is it so? Because we have given a value of 1. As I have told you, it can only be true or false. So when you write true, it will eliminate the error. Okay, so let's print out the value of Boolean. See, down in the console window you can see I have got a output of true. Similarly, you can use it for false too. Bool false semicolon. When you execute the command, you will get your output as false. So this is just the range and size of your data type, and how you are gonna define your data type and how you are gonna use your data types. While making programs, you will be using a lot of data types, so you have to be sure what kind of data type have to be used at what time. So that will be all for this tutorial. In this tutorial, we will learn about the variables and what are the scope of variables. So first of all, the question arises, what are variables, or why we actually need a variable? So variables are nothing but the fields that are used to store data, such as a value, a string, a character value, etc. As we have seen in data type, I have taken a byte A and stored a value 100 to it. That means A was our variable. Similarly, we have taken many variables with different data types. So now the next question is, what is the scope of a variable? In a general perspective, just remember it like this: everything has a lifespan. If you are born, you will die. If you have purchased something, it will turn out. Similarly, if you declared a variable, it will be having its lifetime and a scope, that it will exist from this space to this space. So what is the scope of variable? Scope of any variable can be defined within a block it is declared. So let's take another example and learn it in an easy way. As my exams are coming on, so my dad asked me one day, how much scope do you think you have that you will get at least passing marks in the board exam? I can bet on this that it is the one question that every student must be facing during the exams. So similarly, it happens to me. It kept me on thinking that what should be the answer for this. Then I got the result that it is directly proportional to the time I spend time with my books. So the longer I stayed with my books, I will get a better result. Similarly, the scope of variable is limited within the blocks in which it is declared. So let's take an example first. So what I have done here is I have taken a variable and assigned it a value. So what is the scope of this variable? As I have told you, the scope of variable is within the blocks. So where is the block? The starting of the bracket and the ending of the bracket is the scope of that variable. See, scope of byte var is within whole main method. Why? Because it has been defined at the starting of the main method, just after the brackets, and it will remain till the end of the main method. Let's put another block. For creating another block, you just had to put the brackets. Let's use the byte again. Give it a value 125 semicolon. See, it has not given me any error. Okay, so let's print out the value. See, we have got a value of 125. As I have told you, the scope of any variable lies between these brackets. So let's create a bracket first. Take another variable a, give it a value. Let it be 25. Let's print the value of a. See, we have got the value of a over here. But what will happen if I will copy paste the same line over here? It will give me an error. What's the error? A cannot be resolved to a variable. Why? Because scope of a is between these brackets. As we have declared the variable within the brackets, so it can only be used within these brackets. It has a scope of these brackets only. See, but what will happen if I try to print the byte variable over here? It will not give me an error. It will print the output. It has given me an exception error because we have an error at line number 16. But if you comment this line and again execute the command, you will get an output of value of variable is 100 and value of a is 25 as it was printed within the block. The one thing you should remember is the scope of variable will be within the blocks and the lifetime of the variable will be the place where it is been used. As I have told you earlier, byte var cannot be defined again over here. Let's try to byte var is equal to 2. It will give an error. Byte var cannot be redefined. Byte var cannot be redefined because it will throw an error that duplicate local variable. But what about int? Can it be redefined after this block of code? Yes, it can be redefined after this block of code. Let's redefine it. Int a is equal to 50. See, we have not got any error. You can try to print the statement. We have our statement over here. Let's execute again and see the output. See, value of a within the block is 25. That means within this brackets we have declared the value of a as 25 and we have printed the value of a as 25. Outside that bracket we have again declared a and assigned a value of 50 to it, and we have got output of 50. And the variable var has a scope within main method. It can be printed anywhere within the main method. So these are the basic things you have to remember while declaring any variable or while using any variables. This tutorial is based on arithmetic operations. Before starting relational operators, we must know some basic points about arithmetic operations and priority of operators. So in this tutorial we will learn about arithmetic operations. And yes, you are right, we will be learning to add, subtract, multiply and divide. But it's gonna be a bit different this time because you can't go running to your mom and say, hey mom, look, I have added 2 numbers. That will be a bit embarrassing, I think so. So let this thing be between us only. So let's start by adding 2 numbers. So for adding 2 numbers, what you need is 2 variables. Int salary of first person equal to 50,000. Int salary of second person equal to 40,000. Int my party will be salary of first plus salary of second. So let's print out. I will have fun with a total of 90,000 rupees. So see how interesting it was. But that's the simple math. You can go on with the same thing with subtraction, division, multiplication. There is one important thing you should know about addition sign is that it is also used as a concatenation symbol. So let's take another example and I will tell you the difference between the both. I have copy pasted the same line, but this time I will replace my third variable with the first 2 ones, salary 1 plus salary 2. Don't worry, I will be copy pasting. As I have told you, I will be copy pasting a lot of things. See, I have given 3 print statements. Let's check the output for the first 3 print statements. See, what I have got here is, see, in the first line I have got my correct output as 90,000. What it has done is, it has added 2 numbers and assigned the value to the third variable. So we have got the desired output. In my second example, what I have done is, I have eliminated my third variable and just printed the summation of both the variables. So it has given me a correct output of 90,000. But what happened in the third output? We have got something else. That is, I will have fun with a total of rupees, and I think it's a huge number. So actually what happened over here is, it has concatenated all the 3 things in a same line. That is our statement, I will have fun with a total of rupees this, plus it has concatenated the first variable, then again plus it has concatenated the second variable. Why is it so? Because print statement is parsed from left to right. So first of all, what it found was the main bracket, then in between that it found a statement, then a concatenation sign, then a variable plus another variable. So when you want the correct output, what you have to do is, you have to copy paste the same thing and put it in the brackets. And let's execute the command and see the output first. See, I again got 90,000 as answer. So what happened here is, when the print command is traversed from left to right, it first found the bracket. So my compiler will first solve the bracket. So our bracket will get an output of 90,000 and then it will concatenate it with the statement. So then we will get our desired output. Similarly, you can subtract 2 numbers or 3 numbers, whatever the range of your numbers, or you can multiply and divide. This was the only important thing to know when you are using the concatenation symbol or addition symbol, because this symbol performs 2 functions in Java. So first of all, let's move on and check the priorities of our operators. As I have told you, brackets will be solved first. So brackets over here has got the highest priority. Then afterwards, if you are having a multiplication sign, division sign or a mode operator, it will be solved then. Then our addition and subtraction has got the lowest priority. Let us take an example first. Suppose what will happen if I will just traverse from left to right without any precedence. So according to the above example, so what will happen is, it will first add 10 plus 8. We will get the desired output as step 1. Then it will multiply 18 into 6. I have used the calculator, so don't worry about the output. It will be same as written over here. Similarly, in step 3, it will subtract 4 from 108. We will get an output of 104 by 2, and in step 4 we will get our final output as 52, which is a wrong method. So we have to follow the precedence to make it right. So what is the correct method? Every equation generally is traversed 2 times. In the first parse, it will first look for the highest preceding operators, that is our multiplication and division. So first of all, what it will do is, it will multiply 8 into 6. In the first step we will get 48, and in second step it will divide 4 by 2, that is 2. So the result after first pass will be 10 plus 48 minus 2. Then in second pass, it will again check for the highest priority. Now we are left with only addition and subtraction. So it will traverse from left to right. It will add first 10 plus 48, that is 58. Then in second step, it will subtract 2 from 58, and we will get our result as 56. So this is the correct method to do the sum. Let's take another example with the same values but different approach. See, what I have done is, I have given brackets. So what is the method? As I have told you, brackets have the highest priority among all of them. So in the first pass, what our compiler will do is, it will look for the highest priority. We have got the brackets. So when it traverses from left to right, it will first solve the brackets. So in the first step, what it will do is, it will add 10 plus 8, that is 18. And in second step, what it will do is, it will subtract 6 minus 4, that is 2. So our output will be 10 multiplied by 2 divided by 2. When again it will traverse from left to right, it will look for the highest priority, and now we have got the highest priority of multiplication and division. So first it will multiply 18 into 2, that is 36, and then in second step it will again divide the output with 2. We will get our output as 18. So this is the correct method to solve any problem. So this is the basic chart of Java operators and their priorities. You must have a look at this and must learn the priorities in their order. Division and mode operators. You can use the subtraction and the multiplication operator the same way. There is something you should know about division and mode operator that I will tell you in this tutorial. So let's take a integer of a, give it a value 250. Let's take another integer b, give it a value 50. Another integer, let it be quotient, is equal to a divided by b. Okay, so let's print it out. I might have misspelled quotient. If you want to check, you can check it out. And let's print out the result. So what is our output? Oops, let's get to the bottom of it. We have got an output of 5. You can divide 250 by 50, you will get an output of 5. But what will happen if I replace 250 by 240? What will be the output now? Can anyone guess? Let's execute and see. We have got an output of 4. Why? Because we have taken an integer type, and integer doesn't come with a decimal number. So when 240 is divided by 50, it will give 4 as a quotient and 40 as a remainder. We will not be able to see remainder, so we are getting a value of 4 only. So using division operator with an integer type is useful solving many problems. I will explain you all this in later tutorials when I will explain you how to find even numbers, odd numbers, or take a factorial. And let's move on with the mode operator. We will be using the same example. Okay, so let int and b will be the same. Int remainder, we will just be taking the output variable to be different. We will take a remainder, copy paste. So what I have done here is I have taken another variable of remainder type. I use the same variable a and b and use the mode operator to check the result. So let's print out the result first. Execute the command. See, we have got the output as 40. So what mode operator does here is, using int data type, we will get the remainder. So it is of great use. Suppose you are looking for an odd or even number in a range of 1 to 10,000. So will you be writing 2, 4, 6, 8 a number of time? No. What you will do is you will execute a for loop using a mode operator. You will divide it by 2. If you will be getting a remainder of 0, you will have your even number. If you are getting a remainder other than 0, you will be having an odd number. So that's the easy way to do the things. That will be all about arithmetic operation. But if you want to use the same values with the double data type, you can use it and you will be getting the same output in decimal numbers. That will be all. In this tutorial, we will learn about math functions. Math functions such as finding a square root of a number, finding a logarithmic value of a number, finding the exponential value of a number, finding a minimum or maximum number between the two numbers, or finding an absolute number, anything. Java has provided us with an inbuilt math class in which there are various of math functions. In this tutorial, I will tell you the few most important math functions. And apart from this, if you will need any math function or description of any, you can ask in the comment section. So let's start. Create a class. I have created mine, math class. If you would like to import the math class, what you need to do is you have to write java.lang.math. But in Eclipse, you will not need this class. So we will not import this package. But if you are working on a notepad, you will need this package. So now let's start with the various methods of the Java math class. So first of all, let's take few variables. Value 1 is equal to 50.78. Value 2 is equal to 70.25. Now our first math class function is the absolute method. So what you need to do is, we will be just printing the statement. So let's call the method math dot. As you will write dot, you will get the list of functions that can be used with the math class. So you can select from any of these methods. We will start with the absolute value. So we will select this method absolute double A. So we have to pass the value. We will write value 1. That will be all. Let's execute the command. See, we have got the output as 50.78, which is same as the value 1 variable. So what's the difference of using this absolute function? Now let's change the value 1 variable from positive to negative value and execute the command again. So as you can see, again we are getting a positive value 50.78. So that means using absolute method, you will always get a positive value. Our another method is power. That means if you would like to calculate the power of a number, you can calculate it. POW. As you can see, we have to pass two variables. So first of all, let's start with a simple example. We have given 2 to the power 3. Let's execute the command. As you can see, we are getting 8 as an output. You can change the value to any number if you would like 14 to the power 13.5. You will still get an output 2 point something something. you have got an output of double data type. Similarly, our next method is square root, math.sqrt. You can either take any of these values which we have declared earlier, or you can write a simple example. So let's start with the simple one. As I have written 4. So let's execute the command. So as we all know that the square root value of 4 is 2. Similarly, you can check it out for any value like value 2, the variable which we have given over here. Let's execute the command. See, we have got the output as 8 point something. Our another example is for exponential. SYSO math.exp, and then you can pass a value of double data type. So let's write 5 and execute the command. See, the exponential value of 5 is 148 point something. Similarly, you can find out the maximum or minimum number. So let's try it out. What you need to do is write math.max. So as you can see, as I have written max, it has given me the option to select any of these. So I can either select the max method for the double data type, float, int or long. So let's go with the double. Let's pass our value 1 and value 2. Let's execute the command. The output is 70.25. That means value 2. Similarly, you can check this out for the minimum value. Let's copy paste it, value, change max to min, and execute the command again. See, we are getting the output as 50.78. So this is how you can check the maximum or minimum values. So you might be thinking now where you will be using these methods. It might seem simple to you, but you can use these methods in the programs or the projects you will be creating later on. Our next method is of random number, math.random. We don't have to pass any variable or any number, just execute the command. As you can see, in the last line we are getting an output. It doesn't matter how many times you execute the command, you will get different output each time. As you can see, I am executing the command over and over again, but I am getting different output each and every time. But as you can see, we are not getting a value more than 1 and less than 0. So that means by using math.random function, you will always get a value between 0 and 1. So this was math random function. But in our later tutorial, we will be discussing about the random class. So now let's see few more methods of the math class. So these are the 3 more methods of the math class. The first one is the round function. It will give you the rounded number. That means if you are writing 40.25, it will return you 40. So now let's execute the command and see the output first. See, we are getting 51 as output. The variable value 1 contains the value 50.78. So the nearest rounded number is 51. Our another important function is ceil, that is ceiling. It will give you the closest highest value to the number. So that means we have taken the variable value to 70.25. Let's execute the command. See, we have got 71 as output. That is closest highest number to the decimal number. Similarly, for lowest number, you have to use the floor function, FLOOR. I have taken the same example for the value 2 variable. So let's execute the command. See, for the same example, we are getting 70 as output. So these are the few basic math functions which you will be using. There are many more math functions. Some are for trigonometric math function like sine, cos, tan, and apart from this there are few more methods. So this will be all about the math class and the math class functions. If you find anything difficult to understand, you can ask in the comment section. That will be all for this tutorial. Thank you.